I walked into Disneyland for the very first time. I hated it. 3 decades later, I teach a college course. I give presentations. I write books on my favorite place anywhere in the world, Disneyland. What changed? Well, not the park. When I walked into Disneyland for the first time, August of 1988, well, the park was too hot. It was far too crowded. We waited 3.5 hours to experience our first Disneyland ride. If you go to Disneyland in August today, it will still be too hot. It will still be too crowded. And yes, we still wait 3.5 hours for our favorite Disneyland attractions. No, it's not the park that changed. When I first walked into Disneyland, I knew nothing about Walt Disney and almost nothing about Disneyland. And so I want to share with you some of my journey from the past 30 years. We're going to start where Walt Disney started. You're looking right now at his very first studio. This is the Laugh-O-Gram studio in Kansas City, Missouri, where Walt would work for 1.5 years with a local dentist, creating animation advertisements, teaching children how to brush their teeth. But after 18 months, Laugh-O-Gram studio, Walt Disney, they're bankrupt. It is that bankruptcy. It is that financial failure that will compel him to California. And here in Los Angeles, Walt would join forces with his older brother Roy, and together they would form the Disney Brothers studio, that is the same studio that we all know and love to this day. It is out of that studio that they would then create their first successful cartoon character. And today you all know him by the name of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And by 1928, Oswald is so successful that Walt and now his wife Lily, they're boarding another train. They're headed east. They want to sit down with their distributor, Universal in New York City. But in that meeting, they would learn 2 things. One, when they had signed the distribution deal, they had signed away the rights to the character as well. And while Walt and Lily were busy in New York City, Universal was busy here in Southern California hiring away the very animators who had helped make Oswald so successful. Walt didn't walk out of that meeting with a bigger and better contract. No, he walked out with nothing. He is fearing bankruptcy in the face all over again. And on the train ride home, he remembered a little character who had kept him company during those darkest days in Kansas City. Pulled out a pad and a pencil, sketched out the first story, showed it to his wife Lily and said, "Honey, what do you think of this guy?" Lily looked at him and said, "Why, Walt, he's cute. What are you going to name him?" Walt said, "Well, I'm thinking of naming him Mortimer." And Lily said, "Oh, no, Walt, that name is much too heavy. Why don't we go with Mickey instead?" And thus the world's most popular and successful cartoon character was born. Now, right now, you're looking at our first attraction in Disneyland, which you might think is a little bit odd because that's not a typical Disneyland ride. How many of you, when you go to Disneyland, you have a favorite attraction, the ride that you most look forward to experiencing? Who has a favorite? Right here, what's your favorite? The railroad thing. That sounds like a roller coaster. They got lots of those. Big Thunder Mountain. Well, the railroad thing opened in 1979 in Frontierland, which when the park opened in 1955, we forget this today, Frontierland was the largest land anywhere in the park. It took up 1/3 of the available acreage because of the popularity of the cowboy and Indian genre back in the 1950s. And from there, they would add Nature's Wonderland and the Rainbow Mine Caverns. Some of us are old enough to remember that attraction. And then over time, they would upgrade it to the wildest ride in the wilderness, Big Thunder Mountain. I actually rode Big Thunder Mountain for the first time, not at Disneyland here in Southern California, but at the Magic Kingdom in Florida for my grad night, May of 1981. Love Big Thunder Mountain. Well, in the 1940s, after creating the world's most successful and popular cartoon character, Mickey Mouse, and creating the world's first full-length animated feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Well, in the 1940s, maybe more importantly, maybe more significantly, Walt Disney is now a dad. He is the father to two young girls, Diane and Sharon. Every Saturday afternoon was Daddy's Day. Walt would take off here in Southern California, and they go to the beach, they go to the mountains, they go to museums, but far and away, their favorite place to go was this little merry-go-round in nearby Griffith Park. Moms and dads, grandmas, grandpas, you already know this. When you put a small child on a merry-go-round, do they ever want to ride it just once? No, of course not. They want to ride it again and again and again and again and again. And one Saturday afternoon, while Diane and Sharon are spinning on their merry-go-round, Walt Disney is sitting on that very bench. He has an idea. He has a crazy thought. Walt Disney begins to dream. There should be a place. Why isn't there a place where parents and children can have fun together? So that is my favorite attraction, because that is where the dream of Disneyland was born. Now, as Walt got started on that dream, he first pitched his idea, then known of as Mickey Mouse Park. He pitched it to the city of Burbank. He had some available acres next to the studio there in Burbank, and he began to sketch out, again, what he wanted to call Mickey Mouse Park. And it included a little train that was going to go into Griffith Park and around that beloved carousel and then back to the studio again. But lo and behold, when he pitched his idea to the city of Burbank, they wanted nothing to do with Walt's dream. They wanted nothing to do with an amusement park. I quote, "We don't want a carnival atmosphere in our town." And it was Walt's inability to convince the city of Burbank on his dream for Mickey Mouse Park that would force Walt to look south. And in looking south, he would not discover a couple of acres, but instead he would find 160 acres in an orange grove in Anaheim, and there he would build his real dream, not Mickey Mouse Park, but the dream we know of today as Disneyland. Now, I want to explore a rather interesting question, and that is, okay, Burbank has said no, but Southern California is a big place. Why Anaheim? Well, it comes down to the fact that Walt hired a Stanford research group to go out and find him the best location. They studied 150 different sites here in Southern California. They brought Walt 4 options. The number 1 option was the Ball Road subdivision there in Anaheim. And ultimately, he would select Anaheim for the following reasons. One, as they projected out into the future of Southern California, a future that existed in the year of 1986, as they projected out into the future, the Stanford Research Group predicted that Anaheim would be the demographic center of Southern California. Well, if you go back to 1986, which frighteningly enough was now 30 years ago, if you go back to 1986, lo and behold, the demographic center for Southern California population was in fact Fullerton. They were off by all of 5 miles in 1953. Not bad. Secondly, they were in the process of constructing the Santa Ana Freeway. Walt knew that if he was going to build his park outside of Los Angeles, folks were going to have a way to get there. In addition, they had land available in Anaheim. The citrus industry was in a bit of a downturn in the 1950s, and so that allowed him to purchase the 160 acres en masse at a relatively affordable price. And then lastly, weather. On average, Anaheim runs about 10 degrees cooler in the summer and about 10 degrees warmer in the winter. And it was those four reasons for why Walt ultimately decided to build his Magic Kingdom in an orange grove in Anaheim. All right, so he's got his dream, he's got his location. Now guess what he lacks? Money. The original budget for Disneyland was $3.5 to $4 million. By the time they opened the park, they had spent well over $17 million. To put that into perspective today, Radiator Springs Racers in the newly reimagined Cars Land that opened at Disney California Adventure in 2012, today that is the world's most expensive theme park attraction with a price tag of $350 million. Cars Land cost almost dollar for dollar with the Louisiana Purchase cost the United States back in the early 1800s. Well, Walt didn't have $3.5 to $4 million any more than he had $17 million. He needed a partner, and his biggest problem wasn't just that he lacked money, he also lacked other individuals who could see his dream. No one else had the vision that Walt Disney had. And he realized that television was eventually going to take over the American home, the American living room, and the American family. And in the 1950s, if you were a movie producer in Hollywood and you got in bed with television, you were threatened to be blackballed, and movie theaters weren't going to carry your films. That's how much TV was seen as a threat to the movie industry back in the 1950s. Well, television needed Walt Disney needed television. He went to NBC first, and they said, "We would love to have your shows. We want nothing to do with an amusement park." He went to CBS Television. "We would love to have your shows. We want nothing to do with your amusement park." He then went to the third fledgling national network, ABC Television, which had all of 14 affiliates in the entire country. And ABC needed Disney about as desperately as Walt needed ABC and a partner to help finance Disneyland. ABC put in $500,000 toward Disneyland and then back $4.5 million worth of loans. And as a result, ABC Television got a few shows that some of us remember. The Disneyland TV show, which may well be television's first infomercial, because it started in October of 1954, and every single week it told the story over and over again of what Walt was up to in an orange grove in Anaheim. As a result, 90 million Americans watched the live opening day broadcast on Sunday, July 17th, because of all of the buildup going all the way back to the ABC television show in October of 1954. This is also where we received the Davy Crockett television show that some of us remember fondly. By the time they opened Disneyland, they had sold 2 million Davy Crockett hats. They could almost finance the park from the merchandise in the Davy Crockett television show alone. And then, of course, there is the third TV show that came out of this deal in this partnership, and that is the afternoon Mickey Mouse Club. And again, a lot of us remember that with great fondness. Now, they would break ground on July 17th of 1954. It took them exactly 1 year to build Disneyland. And there was nothing like it anywhere in the world. It took them exactly 1 year to build. Right now, you're looking at the very first completed building during the construction process. Today, that is the Main Street Opera House, which fittingly enough holds the park bench that we were looking at earlier, where the dream of Disneyland was born. But before it actually opened as Main Street Opera House in 1961, the reason why it was the first completed building is it first served as the lumber mill for creating the lumber that they would use to then construct the rest of the park. As I indicated, on July 17, 1955, 1 year after groundbreaking, they would then play host to what was obviously the world